Welcome everyone. In this video we're going to be taking a look at Java timers and giving you a file that will allow you to use a couple of timers in your game programs. Now the timer, here's a little example of what it'll do for you. When I start the timer, what happens is some code is now automatically running. I'm not pressing any buttons, but code is being executed without the user having to do anything. So up until this point, it was always the user having to click a button to make something happen. But now something is happening sort of behind the scenes without me having to press anything. If you're coding video games, most video games are all running in some sort of loop like this because stuff moves without the player ever touching the keyboard or the joystick. Stuff is happening. And in programs like this, where I want a timer to count up or maybe a timer to count down, you don't want the user pressing the button to make the thing count up and down. You just want it to happen. So I can obviously stop the timer, and let's take a look at how you guys can code this in. So for the most part, you're going to be given a file, and this file is called Tock frame. And upon first glance, you're going to see the design view of it is empty, and you should leave this empty. The purpose of this frame is to provide the code that'll let the timers work. And then what you do is you're going to include the Tock frame code in your very own frame, like the stopwatch frame. So I'll show you here that stopwatch you just saw, what its first line of code or first main line of code is, says public class stopwatch frame extends Tock frame. This extends word in Java, what it means is it means basically take all the code from Tock frame and include it inside of me. So my stopwatch frame gets all the code that I've placed in Tock frame. And this is where I've coded the timers. So I'm going to walk you through how to use the timers. And if you want, you're free to actually look inside of the Tock frame and see how it works. But it'll probably be a little above your head at this point. All we want you to know is how to use it in your programs. So let's look at the Tock frame just to see the commands that we have available. So it's pretty easy to use these. The first main command you have is start timer 1. Okay, so I've actually provided 3 timers for you, and they're timer 1, timer 2, and timer 3. So to get timer 1 going, the command's going to be really easy. You're just going to say start timer 1. When you want the timer to turn off, you say stop timer 1. And what code is it going to run? You place that code inside of a method called tick1. Now that's basically it. Okay, basically it. So let's go look how you actually use this in the stopwatch frame. So when I made this frame, I made it just like I make all my other normal frames. So, and it'll write the code for you in NetBeans, right? Public class stopwatch frame. And this part though used to say extends JFrame. What I've done is I've gone and retyped over it, and I've said please extend Tock frame. And when you extend Tock frame, it means you build off of Tock frame, which means you get all the code inside of the Tock frame. And because you're getting all the code, means you're getting these commands: stop timer, tick, start timer, etc. So that's why we don't ever want you to touch the Tock frame. Just leave that one alone. What you do is you make your frame extend off of the Tock frame. This is a powerful idea in Java. It lets you basically borrow and use code from other people's classes very easily. Now let's see how I actually made this stopwatch work. I have start timer and stop timer and the text box. All I've done here is I've made a variable, integer time, and started it at 0. When the user hits the start button, I have a command that I got from the Tock frame called set interval, and I say please set the interval 1 to 1,000. Now these times, 1,000 is not 1,000 seconds, it's 1,000 milliseconds. So this is really The easy way to say 1 second long. So this just means once my timer starts, it's going to run the code once every second. So after I set the interval, I start the timer. So start timer 1. That easy. When they hit the stop button, I stop timer 1. That easy. And now here's the code that's going to take place. Whatever code you want to take place when the timer ticks, you write this method right here. So you write public void tick1. Okay, this is called a method. You're making a chunk of code named tick1. And what do I do in the code? I make the time go up by 1, and I show it in the box. Okay, so that's code you've seen before. That's really it. Soon as you start that timer, every single 1,000 milliseconds, 1 second, it's going to run whatever code you place inside of tick1. And it's that easy. And so when I go to run it, you can see here the stopwatch starts, start, and it's running tick1, 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 tick1. So you got to be smart what code you put in there. As your programs get a little more complicated, you'll actually have quite a bit in there, right? You could have stuff like check the joystick, check for collisions, move the player, move the enemies, make sound effects. Okay, tick1 can be the start of a lot of code that is your main game loop. In this case, it's just running a little timer, right? That's counting up. Let's see what else we could add inside that little ticker there. Here's a little bonus code for you today. I could do this. I've got that button. I don't know if you saw it there. Whoops. It's this button here called button press. I'm just going to move it around as the timer ticks. All right. Let's move this button around. Now to move that button around, the press me, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a random variable here. This would get me a random number between, I think, like 30 and 229. All I'm trying to do is pick a random X number. And then I'm going to set the location of that button. So I'm going to say, hey, button press, set your location to this random X position, and let's keep it at a Y height of 150. So it's a little bit like math, X comma Y. And I know the Y height 150 should work. But the key here is X is random. So X is going to be left and right. This button should pop around moving as the timer ticks. And there it goes. And I know it's a little big of a number, right? It's going off the screen. But you get the basic idea. If this game loop was running a lot faster, you know, this would be moving things around really fast. And let's say you did want it faster. You could just do this. Way back when I start the intervals, let's do just 100. So instead of 1 second, this is 1/10 of a second. And I'll do the same running here. And you'll see this is more like a game loop where stuff would run quickly and you get stuff to move, shoot, fire, etc., etc. So timers are a little important thing to get used to working with, right? Anyways, that's the basic with timers. And we're going to give you a little task that gets you to use the timers a bit in a little program or two. We have a popular one, Button Masher, and another one popular called the Math Race, which is great. And you can even add this to the horse race program to make the horses now move automatically, because you can start a timer and just let the timer move the horses forward whenever the timer ticks. So try those out and good luck with those, and hopefully this has shown you enough to get you to work with your timers.